All right, welcome any replayers. If you're a replayer, you can still participate. You can tap on the screen for hearts. If you wanted to ask any questions and you didn't get a chance, you can find me on Twitter at joannazarach, as well as on Snapchat at joannazarach. Hi, Christy. And for everybody else that's welcome. And Friday is one of our days where we do 2 broadcasts in a day. If you're new to me, my name is joannazarach, and I talk about money. Mostly I talk about developing better money habits, a better understanding of how money works, and how you can put yourself in a position to accumulate wealth. So today's broadcast is going to be on Money Matters, which is a series I'm doing where I dive a little bit deeper into a financial topic. Now, today's my very first Money Matters 202, so it's a little bit more advanced topic. We're diving into a specialized investing experience. I'm going to share with you guys all I know about Lending Club. But before I get into it and why, I want to talk a little bit about why investing is so important and how it's one of the 5 pillars of building your wealth. So there are 5 things that really, really matter when it comes to creating wealth and financial freedom, financial independence, whatever you call it, whatever that it's in your mind. But there are 5 things that are really important. So we're going to talk about one of them, aspect of one of them today. So just to run down through those, what those are: income. Income is the very basic and the most important thing that you can change, that you can affect. And there's a lot of people who are extremely successful in helping you figure out how to increase your income, right? That's entrepreneurs, that's coaches. There's a lot of great people out there with great content that help you think through of, if you have a business idea, how to test it, how to vet it, how to bring it to life. Ramit Sethi's one of them. Charlene Johnson's one of them. There are AppSumo. There's great resources for that. It's only one of the pillars, right? So one. But that's the one that people get most excited about. They think like money in is going to solve all their problems. Money in is only the first part of the equation. Money out, of course, how much you spend of it. It's not what you earn, it's what you keep, right? So number 2 is taxation. So I know taxation is not people's most interesting thing that they think about. But when it comes to building wealth, if you do not understand taxation and how taxes work, you're going to be in the hole. Like, you're not going to get ahead. So you really need to start paying attention to taxation. Take an interest in it, right? Take an interest in taxation. You don't have to be a tax expert, but if you don't understand the basic building blocks of taxation, how taxes impact you, especially your income and your wealth building and the growth of your wealth, then you're going to miss out. Right? So you can overcome the impact of taxation with an extremely high income. But if you're kind of mid-tier, taxation really impacts you. Investments. So one of the topics that we're going to cover today is an alternative investment, but investing. Why is investing so important? This is how you grow your money. So you have to earn it, keep it, grow it. So investing is super important, and there are many different forms of investing, and so I'm not familiar with all of them, right? I haven't done real estate investing, like owning property and renting it out. There are people who are really expert and really good at it. And it interests me, but I haven't done it, right? So I don't talk a lot about it. I think that there are other people that know much more practical, the practical part of it, and are really much more passionate about it. I like market investing, right? I like paper investing. I like paper assets. They're a little bit boring. They're a little bit, spreadsheets. They're nothing associated with it. Like it's, stock. It's a stock ownership or bond ownership. And so Lending Club, to me, falls into paper investing, but it's just like a newer form of investing. Big purchases, how you spend, how you make your large purchases in life matters a lot to your wealth building and, of course, risk mitigation. So let's talk about investing. So most of you know investing as market investing, and I'm a big fan, right? So my introduction to investing definitely came from market investing, mutual funds, right? I don't trade actively. I don't, I don't buy and sell. I have a strong belief, and I think math and statistics back me, that it's actually your savings rate that has the greater impact on your wealth building than the actual investment. Investments in the market have average, I think the average that most people use is 8% return. That's the expected return over years. Now we know that fluctuates, right? So certain years you're up a lot, some years like this year or last year you may be down, right? So it's an average over the years, and most people will benefit from continuing to invest in the market, especially when it's down. There's a conversation around like, should I be investing in the market when it's down right now? Hells yeah, this is the best time to be investing in the market. Okay. Once you've kind of gotten your experience in investing and in the market, what you start hearing about is diversification, right? And most people think of diversification, they just think of like, I gotta buy a variety of stocks or a variety of mutual funds or bonds, right? And that's all still in the market, right? That's the economy, and it's not just the economy. It's a certain part of the economy that's at risk. So the markets, I've been watching the markets go up and down for quite a long time, right? And so in the last 5 years, I've paid more and more attention. I've become a more educated investor, and I started thinking about, well, market goes up and down. That's all my investments, right? Like there might be a little bit of a wave, but it's affecting all of my investments. And I've asked myself, how do I diversify? So I've taken several steps to diversify. One is a tax diversification, which I don't talk a lot about, but you know what? Guess what? I'm going to add it to my topic. Tax diversification is actually a fascinating idea. And it's really like some of my assets are in tax-deferred accounts. Some of my assets are in tax-free. Thank you, Roth. And then some are in taxable. So I have, let me write this down so I don't forget, tax diversification. That's kind of a deeper topic, but we're not going to talk about that today. What we are going to talk about is an alternative investment that I came across several years ago when I was researching. I'm pretty sure it came through like a Mint.com advertisement. There's like, have you tried investing in Lending Club, right? Thanks for the hearts. Thanks for joining. And so I was like, well, I had not heard of Lending Club, right? And so maybe it was 2012 or 2013 when I first started looking into it. So I was looking into it and I was like, what is Lending Club, right? So I do my research. I'm a research-based investor. So I will find out what's the idea behind it, right? So let's talk a little bit about what is the platform and what is Lending Club. And Lending Club actually it's not unique anymore, right? There are other sites, and I don't know many of them because I just don't invest in them, right? But there are other like products like Lending Club. Basically what Lending Club is, it's a peer-to-peer lending platform, right? So Lending Club facilitates the transaction between a borrower that needs money and a lender, which I think it's like the first time, again, it's pretty recent, that individual investors can become lenders, right? I like to think of it as like I'm a bank. And so they are unsecured loans made to individuals, right? So that's the final product. So Lending Club collects a small percentage. I think it's 0.85%. Do not quote me on that because I'd have to look it up, but I'm about right. For the transactions that happen through the website, right? So every time I make a loan, Lending Club collects on that transaction. They manage all of the flow of the loans. So from the borrower perspective, right? You go into Lending Club and you apply for a loan, and it's fairly traditional in terms of they look at your credit score, the income, and they give you a certain rate and a certain amount that they're going to lend out. And then your loan becomes available on the platform for people to lend out against. So that's what peer-to-peer means, is that basically like every day there are like thousands of loans on the Lending Club platform that an investor may come and lend against. Now, Lending Club has made it pretty easy for investors to do that, and they allow some people to just set like a rate that they're willing to, a risk profile, and it'll automatically reinvest it in just like a basket of loans. Now, here's where I differ. Let's just say it, I'm a micromanager, so I like select every single loan I invest in. Okay, before we get to that though, let me talk a little bit about, because this is Money Matters 202, and you might be like, woohoo, this is exciting, I want to be an investor. So because this is a higher risk investment, why? Because it's a loan, you're lending out money. So if the economy like really goes in the shitter and people start defaulting, you are going to lose your investment. That is a risk, right? That is a risk I'm willing to take to get this return. Now, in order for you to be eligible to invest in Lending Club, you have to be an accredited investor. Now, it's a term you may have heard, but you may not be familiar with. By the way, you can always Wikipedia this stuff because it's all there. If you Wikipedia accredited investor and click on United States, it'll give you the detail. But who is an accredited investor? So to be considered an accredited investor, you have to make one of two criteria. One, you either have a net worth in excess of $1 million. That's either for single or couple, and it has to be above your primary residence. So your house, because it's an illiquid asset, it doesn't count, right? So if you have a house that you live in and it's like $200,000 equity in it, it doesn't count towards the net worth. So you actually have to have, all your, excluding the primary residence, you have to have $1 million. Now, if you're not quite there yet, but you're a high earner, those institutions let you take the risk. It's all about protecting people who can't afford to lose the money from making those investments, because you really need to get more sophisticated, more educated, and kind of prove yourself that you can manage like that level of risk. And the criteria there is if you're single and you've had an income of $200,000 each year for the last 2 years and an expectation that you continue having the same. If you're married, combined income $300,000. So if you're those are the two cutoffs. So either a $200,000 for single or $300,000 if you're married for 2 years, and an expectation to make the same amount of this year. So if you're in some industry that's like high leverage, high bonus, or if you just like had a really great, like real estate brokers, right? Like if it was a really hot year, but like right before the crash, and the next year you probably didn't make as much, right? So be mindful about what's your expected amount. Now, accredited investor isn't like something that someone gives out. You don't go somewhere and apply to be an accredited investor. When you go to Lending Club, when you go to open a Lending Club account, they basically are like, you have to self-certify. They tell you what the criteria is, and you have to say, yes, I am an accredited investor. So that's important. So I understand that there are listeners and viewers that aren't yet accredited investors. And why do I say yet? Because if you're following me and if you want to follow my advice, the goal is for you to grow your net worth, right? So even if you don't have the income potential that qualifies you, over time, I want you guys to be on your way to become accredited investors. Why? Can investors? I think you can. I mean, anyone can get a loan, right? It's a lending platform, so you can apply through it as a borrower. Now, I would wonder like whether it would be worth it for you to be an investor there and a borrower, but anybody can apply in Lending Club, whatever their criteria is. I haven't gone through the application process. I haven't borrowed money in a very, very long time. And so yeah, lots of people, like I see, lots of people borrowing money through that platform. So it's, what is it used for primarily? By the way, there's other definition. There's full definition of accredited investors. So I just gave you the one for like individuals, and there's some different criteria for trusts, for corporations, for like investment clubs, etc. Now, why do people come? So let me talk about from the borrower perspective. Why do people come to Lending Club? This is probably not exhaustive, but this is what I'm observing. Most people come to Lending Club to consolidate or refinance their existing debt. Some people come to fund their small business, so they get a loan for their small business, a small business loan from there. Some people are looking to make a purchase, and they come here to finance that. So maybe a home down payment, maybe a car, maybe some repairs or something for your home maintenance. Some people come for vacations to finance it. Let me just tell you right now, I've never lent out to someone who comes to Lending Club to borrow money to go on vacation. I'm judgmental that way. Okay. And then medical bills. Because as we know, medical bills can get extremely high, and they can create a burden, and they're unexpected expense. So those are like examples. Yeah, right. Like those are examples of what happens. So, what is the, basically, so what is, at the end, what is Lending Club really? It's an alternative source of loans, and it's funded by investors. So when you go to a bank to get a loan, those loans will be funded by deposits, right? Deposits that other people make. So the bank has a large amount of money. There's regulations, how much they have to keep in terms of how much they can lend out. There's I think so. I think that the lending platform, it's a couple of things. You do it from your computer, right? You still submit all your paperwork, but it's kind of like, it's a little bit like Geico for loans, right? Like where it's a little bit less personal. Like it's not really like they're just like, okay, based on your credit score, based on your income, based on this is the rate you're going to get, and this is the amount of you lend out. Yeah, and so you can get, so they do the process, right? So what Lending Club has done is developed a process, a streamlined process for borrowers to be evaluated and then presented to investors. Really, that's what happens, because and then the investors can decide whether to fund those loans. Now, how does that work? So the let's see. So you, as an investor, right? I'm actually it's interesting because like Lending Club went public, and I feel like investors is two meanings, because I'm an investor in Lending Club stock. Don't buy that stock. No, I mean, buy it now. It's done terrible since the IPO, like all tech stocks. But I have such an emotional attachment to Lending Club. I bought some of their IPO stock. But what I'm talking about when I talk about investor is I'm the lender, right? So I'm putting up my money at risk to fund loans. And what does it mean to really, like, what are you really investing in? How does the process work? So that's what I want to go through today. So basically, like, the recommendation of Lending Club is to, like, only partially fund a whole bunch of loans. So their statistics, they say once you get to about 600 to 800 loans, then their statistics apply. And each loan, their default amount is to fund each loan at $25. So if you had, I'll use a very simple example. Like if someone came to get $1,000 loans, you would need 40 investors at $25 to fund that loan. And once the loan is funded, that actually tells you, like, so many investors funded this loan. Now, they don't recommend, but people can choose. If for some reason you're like, oh, I love this borrower is like perfect, I think they're gonna like return. Hi from Ireland. They're gonna return their money, and so you can fully fund someone's loan. Now you're taking the risk, right? Because it's a different risk set. Now you're risking it on one person. So the idea is that you're kind of spreading the risk of default amongst many loans. And so what results is that the loans that you give out, you're not going to get the rates that the people are quoted at, right? You're going to get the rates that it's called, like, they actually calculated. They have a net annualized return. And I think it's like around 8%, which you're actually going to get after all defaults are said and done. So, and then they also give you a rate of how is your loan portfolio doing to date with all of the late loans and everything. So there's like a few different numbers when it comes to rate of returns. And that's why sometimes it can be very confusing on how that works. Let's see if this is going to work. Okay, so you can see like net annualized return. I can do net annualized return is 8.24% for my current portfolio. But when I put it and I say, well, what if everyone who's late right now defaulted on their loan? So people are late at various intervals. So let's see. 30 days, 16 days. Let me see. It'll be easier if I read it. Okay, hold on. Get myself back. Okay. Loans are either not yet issued, they're current, They're in grace period, which is for 2 weeks. Some are fully paid, by the way. Sometimes you expect to make an interest, and sometimes people will prepay their loans. Some loans are 16 to 30 days. Some are 31 to 120 days. Then they go into default, then they go charge off. So when people get late, get behind their payments, it takes quite a bit of time for that loan to get charged off, right? So that's something to understand, is there's a delay in those defaults to happen, to take place. And that's why there are various rates of return, because some people come back from getting the from not paying, from being charged off. But there's a certain percentage of loans that charge off. And I still remember the very first loan that defaulted, right? So this is like, I've been investing in it since 2013, so middle of 2013. And I still remember that very first loan, because it's like, you're like, well, oh my God, like money, like it's not going to get paid back, right? And obviously now I'm up to like 100 loans that have been charged off. So it's not as big of a freak out. Plus I also know that end of the month, they like close out the charged off loans. So like beginning of the month, like a whole bunch of like money just disappears because those loans were charged off. So what happens if you are an accredited investor and you put some money in, it sits in cash until you invest in the loans. Again, you can kind of pick a portfolio builder option, where it tells you, like, here, let's see. The portfolio builder option is, it's telling you to pick different options. Now, that's like how many notes are available, and you can pick different options, and you can see these really high percentages, but those are like, that's how, that's the return, how big those loans are. So it's not necessarily where you're going to get. I think that's one of the things that's a little bit misleading, where you see like these huge returns, and I was like, yeah, I'm not seeing that, right? Like I'm seeing 8%. And so at first I started to invest. So I made a formula of what loans I invest, and I'll show you guys a little bit on how I do it. So I basically, after the first 6 months, I experimented by investing a variety of loans. And they have two terms, 36-month loans and 60-month loans. So it's 3 years or 5 years. That's how long the borrower has to repay the loan, which means the rate for a longer loan may be a bit higher for the borrower, but the risk to you as a lender may also be higher. So after a while, I decided, you know what, I want to take a stance, and I'm only going to fund the 3-year loans, not the 5-year loans, because I want a shorter time from sort of current situation to what might happen. And plus the economy, like out 5 years, that again, it creates uncertainty. So I feel pretty good about the economy in the next 3 years in terms of people being able to hold jobs, and that gives them income to repay the loans. The other thing is, like, I don't fund really big loans. The maximum loan amount here is $35,000 of how much people can borrow. And I just don't like funding anything over $20,000. And the reason is because those loans are, tend to have hefty, monthly payments. And so in how I evaluate loans, you'd have to have a pretty high salary. So a lot of times those high loans, I'm just like, that's not responsible, right? So I use this like sort of a little bit of like judgmental Susie Orman thing, where it's no loan for you. So here, I'm going to show you guys what, from a investor perspective, what do I see if I can get this to work. It's all of a sudden, whenever you're trying to do a demo, that's when things don't work. So I want you guys to see what's available to me as the investor in terms of the information that's presented. Like, how do I make my decisions on it? Because again, I told you guys I'm a micromanager, and I pick every single loan. So I pick loans that are term, so I automatically filter out for just loans that are 36 months and they're under $20,000. So here, so here's what an investor screen looks like. Basically, it has a listing of loans. You can see, you probably can't see because it's little. There's 182 loans available that meet my basic criteria, which is 3 years and less than $20,000. And you can see that there are amounts. And there's also like percentages, C, C, D, C. So those are rates. So A is the best, the lowest risk, which is only about 8%. And so at some point I decided to fund loans that are C or above, because I like the idea. I was willing to take more risk because if you just take A loans, the highest you're ever going to get is 8% at most. And then B loans were like with the 12%, but those loans default. So the other thing is I've been trying to see like how do loans default and start trying to learn something about it. And what you, like people who have A and B rated credit, like, so these are people with a higher FICO score, they still default because it's not things out of their control. So I decided to take a higher risk and fund C and D loans that are higher rate, but also higher likelihood, higher calculated likelihood of default. Okay. So what I usually do is I'll just click through the loans. And again, I tend to fund loans that are loan refinancing and consolidation. I don't fund vacations. I don't actually fund medical loans. I'm a little concerned with the health of a person, and I think it's because I'm scarred by my first default. It was someone who passed away, and that loan's not collectible. So what does this show me? So these are anonymous, right? So I don't know who the person is. What I do know about them is what's the amount, like whether they rent or own. You can see here, rent or own. You can see here, that's the monthly payment of the loan. This is their income. And they're a service technician somewhere in Illinois. And they used to have the exact location, but I think they probably got into trouble. And so the other thing it gives me is some of their financial history. So it tells me how much outstanding revolving credit they have. So this person has nearly $5,000 and they're seeking $8,400. So they might have some other loan that doesn't register here, or maybe they're looking for a little bit extra cushion. Their line utilization, how many credit lines, your earliest credit line, typically it mimics some sort of age, but it's not, exact. This is all zeros, which is good in terms of delinquencies, public records, and all that. So this is kind of the screen that I get for every single borrower. So I actually like this borrower. I think that's a decent ratio of monthly payment to the individual gross income. So I say that can this person afford this payment? And I look at to be the less than 10% of their gross income. Like what job do they have? Do they have some sort of skill set? That's, that in case they lose a job, can they get another job in this field? So by the way, I love healthcare workers because I feel like they're permanently employed in our society. I love anybody who has a hustle job. I love people who are, who just show any type of initiative. So I feel like those people are more likely to replace their income than just someone who has a job that may not be replaceable. Okay, this was interesting. So this is a next loan, and this one's a D loan. So it's like a higher risk, 18%, right? And this person's asking for $6,400. Now, the problem is they don't have a lot of income. That's not even $3,000 a month. They're in sales. This is the troubling piece. Here, this person's $40,000 in credit card debt. That's a red flag for me. There's no way this person's going to get out from under this debt. And I basically passed. This is the kind of loan I will not fund because I think this is a really, really high risk. So I'll pass. Let's do a couple more and see if there's any questions. Same thing here. The income is too low in terms of their payment. It's because the income's about $2,000 and the monthly payment's $320. So it's over 10%. So I won't fund it. I think that's a little bit too high of a risk for me. This one, same thing, too high of a payment for that 10,000. Okay, see, this is interesting. So this is a physician, right? Resident physician, which means they're still early in their career, but they own a house somewhere in Michigan. Michigan. I don't know exactly where. I hope they don't have to deal with the Flint mess. This is the revolving credit balance. Obviously, they have a lot of credit lines. They had a couple delinquencies. Last one's 3, so the refinancing. So I'm actually going to fund this person because they're a little bit higher risk, but they're a physician. They're going to generate an income in our healthcare system. So I'm going to fund them, and I'm going to wish them the best. So medical expense, I pass. Credit part, payoff. Ooh, a design engineer. I'm fascinated by people's jobs and how much they make. But you know what? Even though this ratio is good, they've borrowed $26,000 worth of revolving credit. So I'm going to pass. Sometimes the loans are small. And again, I only fund $25 of each of these loans. this is interesting. This person's making $10,000 a month cleaning crew. I just don't think that this is realistic. I think that that's a fraudulent application. Okay. $8,000, therapist, $3,000, ratios look good. You can see delinquencies, public records, all that. So I'm going to fund it. All right. That's the process. So I hope this gives you a little bit more insight into and how Lending Club works from an investor perspective. And like I said, I've been doing it since 2013. I'm quite happy with it. It's performing. It is delivering 8% return. It's totally diversified for the market. It's been kind of the bright spot in the last couple of years. So the market's kind of just really getting crushed and crunched and just not growing. So this has kind of given me an alternative to just see my money grow over time. Again, it is a higher risk in some respect because it's a loan. So when you lend out all that money, what happens is that it's all at risk because everyone could default, right? Like if the economy tanked and half the people on this list lost their job, they would have a really, really hard time repaying those loans, which means there would be a higher rate of default than predicted, which would mean that I wouldn't get my 8%. I might lose money. Then I have to accept that, right? I accept that that risk by being an accredited investor. It's two things. One, I'm not relying on this money to like feed my family, right? Like on the money that I put at risk, or even my retirement, right? Like this is outside of my retirement account. Although you can do an IRA through Lending Club, and then your money grows. Not only that money that you gain is going to be tax-free because right now that's taxable income, like all the interest I make. Not only that, because it's notes, it goes on a different part of my my tax returns. So I've like generated additional tax forms in this last couple years. Yeah, it's a small price to pay. The interesting thing is, as I'm watching it, and so I'm cognizant of how banking works, but really like being a lender has really I don't know, somehow I've had these revelations about how money works through Lending Club. One of the things that because I do it every day, like I do a few loans every day, it's just, it's just something, I have a little system. And I realized I'm making maybe $5 every day. And that was like $20,000, not times 8%, divided by whatever. That makes you like $5 a day, between 8 and 10%. So I realized how hard my money's working and how I need to help my money grow by being even better about my spending. The other thing that's interesting is that I've more than doubled the amount of money that I lent out than the original investment. This fascinates me, right? This fascinates me because every month, like even though the loan is 36 months, it's not like at the end of 3 years somebody pays back. They start paying back the next month, right? So all the loan balances go down and the repayments happen with interest. And so the money gets deposited in my cash account and then I get to reinvest it. And again, Lending Club lets people to just do it automatically, like almost like a dividend reinvestment, except it's a repayment. And you can do that automatically, but I just, because I do it myself. So I've actually had this like money come back with interest and now I can reloan it out, right? So I'm constantly rolling the loans out. So my most mature loans are going to be like, some of them got prepaid, but some of them, if I started in 2013 and then 36 months, this is the time that they're going to get paid off. So I have I just keep chronological order of my portfolios. Like I see how much I lent out in 2013 and 2014 and 2015. And now it's, 2016. So it's been a hugely, hugely educational tool for me as an investor on really getting even deeper on how money works, how investments return, and how money gets made in the world, right? I'm always like, how does money get made in the world? So I highly recommend it. I do. I think it's such an interesting platform, and it's really well maintained. Technically, I find and from the user experience, I really like it. I really, really like Lending Club. I don't have a comparison to other products like it, but in terms of financial platforms, it's top notch. I haven't had much customer service that I've needed. When I was first setting up, they were great at answering my questions. I do think that there's not a ton of education around how Lending Club works. Sometimes even the nitty nitty-gritties, like how quickly, like some loans get funded quickly, like once all the investors sign up, they get issued quickly, and some are in review for like weeks and weeks, it seems. No more than 4 weeks, but some are in review for like 3 weeks. And so your money is kind of tied up in loans that are in review. So that's it. That's your Money Matters 202. I'm just trying to share my knowledge of different types of investing platform and different types of investment. And if you do have a question, if you're watching this either on replay or you watched it and didn't have a chance to ask, because by the way, like I know Periscope's wanking lately, and I'm like, I only seeing 2 people. I don't know how many people are actually watching, and the number of people like fluctuates. I know people have issues with it. Or if you're watching on Twitter, because this is in my Twitter feed, and you want to ask a question, a more detailed question, please feel free. I love this platform. I think it's a great alternative investment. I'm happy to answer your questions either on Twitter or Snapchat, or you can probably just Google me and find my email somewhere. I always welcome that discussion, and I want to educate people who are interested in investing. So thanks for joining today, and I will be on tomorrow, Money Habits at 10 a.m. Central Time every day, including Saturday and Sunday, and we talk about successes and then savoring what you've accomplished. On Saturday, we talk about what success you've had this week. Sunday, how do you savor what you've worked so hard on? So, and then otherwise, every day, 10 a.m. and 10 a.m. Central Time, and then on Tuesdays and Fridays I'm doing Money Matters. Don't know yet what my topic is going to be for next week. I'm kind of exploring a variety of topics and actually learning a lot about what information people need for meeting with different families and different small business owners to just try to understand what's holding them back. And it's been extremely educational for me when I sit down with someone and go through their finances and understand sort of where they're coming from. So thanks a lot again for joining, and I will see you later. Goodbye.